How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. It's been a minute since I've gotten some FaceTime, so I figured I would do a different video. I'm going to do a recap of last week, February 22nd to the 26th. I had a record week. I made $11,854, and I just want to go over that, talk about some of the changes I made that allowed me to put up a week like that, and then do the February monthly recap. It feels great to put up a week like I did, but I got to be honest, up to that week, I had been very up and down. I was definitely getting chopped up, kind of range-bound market, going for breakouts, having trades come in, going for breakdowns, having those trades bounce against me. So I was taking a lot of losses and really was not able to get much going. But before I go over the trades, because it really was only a handful that allowed me to put up a great week and talk about some of the changes that I made, the most important thing is the proof that I did it. So right here, here's my broker statement. Matt Diamond right here, 22nd to the 26th. Now the very top part, this is going to be stock. I made $2,513 trading stock and then made $9,340 trading options. And the grand total on the week was $11,854, which is amazing. And the thing that I am most happy about is just looking into the trades. I never really let anything get too big. My biggest loser was $631. And this was already after I was up nicely green on the day, and I just continued to try to scalp flags to the downside on Tesla, and then the last one did not follow through, took a loss, and I actually ended up calling it a day. But looking at the losses, even a lot of flat trades, there were a lot of times where I gave something a chance, it didn't go right away, it'd come back in, and I would just get out to be safe. But just looking at the numbers, I'm very happy with it. So minus 387, plus 2,400, 400, plus 4,000, 1,000, almost $2,000, couple few $100 trades, 800, 868, and then the biggest loss being that 631. So just the overall numbers, the winners compared to the losers, I think I did a really good job. Okay, so now that you saw the actual proof, which is very important, I want to talk about some of the changes that I made. So I'm a big fan of taking opening range breaks or flag patterns off the open. And I noticed that in the current environment, that's where some of my quick losses are coming from. So I really made an effort to wait for the overall trend of the market. The SPY, the Qs, all the names that I'm watching together. And then I will wait for them to show direction, right? Show the trend, which way the market is going, and then scalp trend. So not being so antsy off the open to take a trade like I normally can be, really just letting things shake out, whip around, do what they got to do, and then when everything clearly shows which way it's going, that's when I get involved. A lot of trades that I take are within the first 15 minutes, and I dialed that back, and most of the trades that I took last week were after the first 15 or 20. And that single-handedly was the reason why I didn't get chopped up and I was able to just ride momentum. And the next thing that I've done, which I've talked about before, is I took my P&L off the screen, and I can't tell you how much that's helped my trading. I wish I had done it sooner. I'm glad that I finally committed to doing it, but the reason that it's helped me is because if I take a quick loss, I'm not looking at that red number and then obsessing over it. What I'm really doing is realizing, okay, the trade didn't work out. Now let's find another setup if there is one. Otherwise, I don't feel the pressure to have to overtrade. But the moment that I look at a red number on my screen, I start to feel the pressure. I want to overtrade. I want to get that money back. And that's where I can make a lot of mistakes. So just from a psychological standpoint, not having the P&L on my screen at all times has made a huge difference. It's pretty crazy how something as simple as that can change your trading performance, but we all know how complicated this is. And sometimes those tiny little tweaks are what's needed in order to get you going again. It definitely decluttered my brain and just allowed me to focus on the setup and then let the P&L follow after the fact. And speaking of setups, I want to go over some of the trades that I took from last week. Starting with BIDU on Monday, this is when it made a new all-time high, and this was the best trade of the week for me, and I actually did a recap of it, so I will make sure to add that video above. But the reason why this trade worked out is because BIDU the day prior had a really big momentum candle, made a new all-time high right off the 9 EMA. The market was a little weak, it was gapping down, and after about the first 15 minutes, BIDU showed a lot of relative strength. Yes, my entries could have been better, but I still took advantage of the nice move and rode it through all-time high. So BIDU had a little dip off the open, had a big push, got back above VWAP. This area would have been the ideal entry, but when this had this big of a move and I was looking at the tape on elevated volume, it let me know that buyers were seriously in control, and it just felt like it had a chance to make a new all-time high. So I actually ended up getting long, and I'll show the entries right here. I got long, this is mountain time. I got long 5 contracts at 9.59, filled at 15.60, BIDU pulled back a little bit, created a flag pattern, and then I got in 5 more at 1588. Here's the 1 minute intraday chart just showing the entries. So got 5 contracts right here, pulled back a little bit, nice flag pattern, added to it, knowing all-time high was above, and watched this go right through all-time high, and then started piecing some out. So took 5 off, took 3, and then took 2, and that was a very nice win, and then ended up taking 1 more scalp on this. So let it do what it had to do, pulled back right to the 9, also retested this all-time high, and then the moment this started to pick up again and the tape started to speed up, went long 5 contracts, right up to that new high, took 3, and then made a new high, and then took the last 2 off. So had a very nice trade on BIDU. And I had actually taken a trade on CCIV where I just couldn't get much going, and I lost $388. So I was red on the day, and then just waited for BIDU to wake up, took advantage of that move, and that put me up $4,872 on the day, which is amazing. And then the next really good trade that I took was the day after on Tesla, and this was the day that the market gapped down huge. So I wanted to be careful about shorting, but there was a lot of pressure, so it felt like there was a little bit of downside room. And I ended up taking kind of the opening range break on Tesla, and just to go to show the options and the fills. So I ended up making $24.50 on this day. I did a live trading video on it. I will make sure to tag that. But the trade that really put the day together was the 660 puts. Made $19.75 on it. I was in the trade for about 30 seconds. So Tesla had to push off the open, quickly failed, was watching the tape. Sellers were aggressive. Momentum was to the downside. Went for the opening range break right around 660 and took the trade off as soon as it went in my favor. This does not look like a big move, but this was about 5 points. And yes, Tesla did continue to go to the downside, but you can't catch everything. And after a really quick win off the open, I didn't want to overtrade it. And the other really nice trade that I took was on GME. So on the 25th, everybody knows what happened. GME looked like it was on its way to squeeze again. So this was on my watch list, but I wanted to make sure to be very careful. So off the open, GME opened right around 170, pulled in basically 70 points. I did not want to short it. I didn't want to touch it. That price action was a little too crazy. This is where it started to get interesting. So finally found a bottom, started to hang around VWAP. If anybody was short, it gets over a VWAP. They're probably starting to feel some pain. Had a nice push, pulled back, and started to get right to high a day. I ended up taking this long on the high day break just for a quick scalp. I took a ton of trades this day, really just scalped Tesla to the short side. Once it showed trend, once it showed the direction it wanted to go, that's where some of the P&L came from. But the biggest trade was on GME. So I ended up taking it long 300 shares, 168.99. And then if you see where I got out the 300, 176.87. I ended up getting about 8 points in just under 1 minute. So that was a trade where I was just riding momentum, knowing that if there's anybody short just from the intraday, that high day is where everybody would want to stop out. Because if I was short and it started to make a new intraday high, I don't want to be a part of that trade. I don't want this to squeeze and take a big loss. So the moment that it hit 170 and stops got triggered, I just rode it for that really quick move. So it was only a few trades that allowed me to put together a big week, and that continuously lets me know that as much as I want to overtrade or be involved in every single move, that's fine, but I have to trade small when I'm doing that. And then when the A+ setups happen, that's when I have to size up, take advantage, and that's where a lot of the P&L comes from. So that was the weekly recap and some of the trades that I took. Now let's look at my February monthly P&L. So looking into the broker statement, February 1 to the 28th, I actually ended up messing around trading some penny stocks this month, and it worked some of the time, but I ended up taking some decent losses the other times, and it just lets me know I need to stay in my lane. So I lost on this IMNN, $4,500, VERU, $2,300. I ended up making $752 altogether trading stock. Had I not dabbled into those kind of names that I'm just not that familiar with because of frustration, I would have had about $5,000 or $6,000 more on top of my P&L. So it just goes to show that if you're frustrated, trying to trade another style or strategy can seem like that's the right move, but it may not work out that well, which ended up happening to me. And now as far as options, which is my go-to, I ended up making $7,659, gross $8,412 minus the $4.50 in data fees, made $8,407. And making $8,407 in a month is great, but there were some serious mistakes that I made, and really that could have been closer to like 14. As traders, it's hard to be perfect. We always want to do better, but still, I'm happy that I was green on the month and made a decent amount. So I'm going to make sure moving forward, I'm going to stay away from the penny stocks or those crazy high flyers. I'm going to focus on what I do well at. I'm going to make sure to be patient off the open, let the market pick a direction, and then scalp trend. And I'm also going to continue to keep the P&L off my screen so it doesn't mess with my head. So that was a quick review of my record week, some of the trades that I took, and my February monthly recap. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.